What's up, gang? Kawaii50 here with another fake Grand Order video. And did you know that in the 5th anniversary, we are getting a huge amount of rank up quests? And by huge, I mean double digits. 14 rank up quests are coming to fake Grand Order. 14! We're talking the number of one of the best Final Fantasies. We're talking about the number of different ingredients I want to see in a burrito. We're talking the maximum amount of money anything should be on a Steam sale. That's right, 14 new rank up quests. And as always, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go through all of the rank up quests. And at the end of this video, I'm going to let you know what I think are the top 3 best rank up quests that are showing up during this anniversary. Now, to be quite honest, absolutely all of these rank up quests are pretty damn good. So hopefully this video helps get you even more hyped for the 5th anniversary. And if it does, be sure to go ahead, like, and subscribe. So we are looking at 6 full days of rank up quests. We're going to be getting 2 a day for the first 5, and then the final day we are getting a true elite 4 of rank up quests. So let's talk about this first day. Looks like we are getting a boost to Phantom of the Opera, a long forgotten low rarity servant. He is getting a boost to his charm effect. This can now charm any enemy regardless of whether they're male, female, Astolfo, choose not to identify, whatever works. Everyone wants a piece of Phantom of the Opera now. And this also provides a solid bit of utility in buff removal as well. So even if Phantom isn't going to deal a lot of damage, you're going to get a little bit more mileage out of him. The second buff on that day is going to go to Brynhilde, and she is getting a boost to her Primeval rune skill. In addition to the critical attack chance reduction and NP damage reduction, she is also getting a slight NP steroid of 20 to 30% on that. Considering she's a primary buster servant with only 1 arts card, this is a much needed boost to a lot of people's favorite Lancer. Our second day continues the trend of a lower rarity with a 5-star boosted servant. Our lower rarity getting a buff is Darius, who's getting a boost to his battle continuation skill. Not only is this still going to grant guts, but it's also going to reduce all enemies' buster resistance by 20% for 3 turns. This bonus is already really good on Karna's Noble Phantasm, so any masters without a high rarity berserker or any masters just starting the game for the first time are going to find Darius to be an excellent pick for getting them through parts of the game. Our 5-star getting a boost this day is Riko, and the boost is going squarely towards her Noble Phantasm. The damage is of course going to get a buff, as most Noble Phantasm strengthenings do, but this is also going to reduce the enemy's critical attack chance by 20% for 3 turns, something you always like to see when bringing a servant to a challenge quest. Maybe now you've got a little more reason to bring Riko to one. On day 3, our low rarity getting boosted is David, another early game 3-star. Hamesh Avanim is getting a solid buff to, of course, its damage, and is also going to be dealing 200% extra damage to giant enemies. Something that is very thematic, and something that might actually be helpful for you in the long run when fighting certain bosses. Got more reason to use David again. Consort U is the other servant getting a buff on this day, and her buff is going towards Heaven's Feathered Woman. Not only does this already provide a solid boost to HP recovery, but this is also going to now increase Mayren's buff removal resistance by 50 to 100% for 3 turns, which is honestly fantastic. It straight up starts to make her usable, because that Noble Phantasm detriment has really scared me away for a long time, and I'm excited to finally use her again with this buff. Also on top of that, she's going to get a solid 20 to 30% attack boost, something any assassin servant is delighted to get. On the next day, you'll first be seeing a buff to Neza, mainly to Neza's Noble Phantasm. This buff, while solid, isn't necessarily as exciting as some of the other ones we've already seen. This is just a general boost to damage, as well as a boost to that burn debuff that Neza inflicts. Rather than dealing 1,000 damage a turn for 5 turns, this now deals 3,000 damage a turn for 5 turns. This is a trend I really hope we see with pretty much any status debuff going forward. They just need to deal more damage to be more viable. Our boy Arjuna is going to be getting a buff, the classic vanilla version of him, which makes sense considering he's also getting a costume this anniversary. We got to go ahead and make sure we hype him up. Hero of the Endowed now has a bonus effect, charging his Noble Phantasm gauge by 10% every turn for 5 turns, making this skill grant Arjuna a total of 75% Noble Phantasm gauge. Really, really solid buff. Our next day sees a boost to caster Gilgamesh, and it's honestly something I've been hoping to see with him. Not only is Malamu Dinjir now going to deal extra damage, but it's going to provide the party with more than just a defense buff. The party's critical damage is now to get increased by 30% for 3 turns. So if you've got an arts crit servant like, say, Lancelot or Yagyu Munenori, now might be a good time to consider pairing them with Gilgamesh for some more difficult boss content. I know a lot of masters here are huge fans of Musashi, so I know you're going to be very, very jazzed to see that she is getting a massive strengthening to her Noble Phantasm. Pretty much every aspect of this Noble Phantasm is getting increased. The damage is increasing, the NP damage boost she receives before damage is dealt is increasing, and this is also now going to deal an extra 150% damage to Alter Ego or Moon Cancer enemies, granting Musashi a lot of awesome versatility. There is legitimately a story reason for this, but I don't want to go ahead and spoil it for anybody, so just make sure that you go ahead and play through FGO story if you want to kind of figure out why. And now we get to the final day with a massive boost to 4 OGs from Fate Stay Night. The first boost goes to Coo, who really didn't need any sort of buffs, but anyone who is a massive Coo fan is going to be delighted by the boost to his battle continuation. This still grants the guts, but it also grants a bonus increasing his attack related to his own remaining HP for 3 turns. So the lower his HP is, the higher you are going to see this damage get boosted. It is absolutely fantastic and is going to make your Coo even more of a last-ditch effort fighter. And speaking of last-ditch effort fighters, Heracles is also getting a buff to his own guts. Again, as if he needed that. His guts now changes to Indomitable. It now grants a on guts activation buff for 5 turns. When his guts gets activated, he's going to receive a 20% increase to his Buster card effectiveness for 5 turns. With 3 Buster cards in his deck and all the likelihood that you are using Heracles as your last-ditch effort God save me servant, you are likely going to win more than you ever possibly could have in the past. This is truly an incredible buff for Heracles that helps him do exactly what you want him to do. Our boy Emia is going to be receiving yet another buff to his 3rd skill. He is finally receiving Trace On. So Trace On, of course, granting that solid boost to his quick performance arts and Buster performance. That's all getting boosted again. And this also is going to allow Emia to swap his Noble Phantasm's command card type between arts and Buster. So we're getting a little bit of Space Ishtar added onto Emia. Emia was originally arts in a lot of the early builds of Fate Grand Order, and him being arts is actually absolutely incredible and is going to lead to him being a far more powerful servant, as well as being viable in a lot of the upcoming arts meta going forward. So if you have an Emia, if you've kept him in storage, now might be time to dig him out. You are going to see this man shine once again. His body is truly made of swords. And finally, being the poster girl of the franchise, OG Artoria also needs to receive a buff. Her mana burst now becomes Dragon Reactor Core. This grants her that Buster performance boost and an NP damage boost, but also on top of that, she gets a neat little mechanic which allows her to change all of her command cards to Buster for 1 turn. So you know that you are truly going to maximize that damage. Definitely pair her with Merlin regardless of how much she may protest. You are going to be seeing some raw damage from your Artoria going forward. And now we need to ask the question, who are the 3 winners from these buffs? I personally thought the answer was obvious as I went through all of these bonuses. First off, of course, Coo and Heracles. Coo and Heracles receive bonuses to exactly what players expect them to do, and just all around make them far, far better for it. This Guts bonus is going to be insanely helpful for anyone that wants to play with solo comps, and it's also going to be helping a lot of players who are using these servants as last stand servants to help carry them through content. I think a lot of newer players are going to find these buffs are very, very welcome. Players without a lot of servants in their arsenal are also going to find these buffs very, very welcome. It's just all around great for anybody who needs a last stand servant to help push them that little extra over the challenge quest edge. And of course, finally, I definitely want to give major props to Mayren. It was legitimately a toss-up between Mayren and Emia between me considering these servants, but Yu's buff is just so substantial. Emia was already very, very usable and one of the best servants players could start with in the game. Mayren with this buff definitely becomes usable and becomes a servant you can definitely put in on your roster. It is an absolutely massive change for her, so based on that alone, I've got to go ahead and give this slot to her. So Coo, Heracles, and Mayren. These are my picks for the best buffs we've received this anniversary. But of course, I want to know what you all think, so let me know your thoughts on what buffs have been received down in the comment section below. Let me know which servant you are most excited to see get this buff, and if you've got any ideas for buffs for other servants as well, go ahead and let us know about those down below as well. It's always fun to talk about and speculate in general what FGO is going to do to change going forward, especially now that we've got Single at the helm. If you want to talk more Fate Grand Order, of course, my Discord server is always open. I want to give a big thanks to patrons on Patreon, subscribers and followers on Twitch, and of course, all of you here on YouTube for helping motivate me to continue making these videos. I really do appreciate it. But anyways, gang, this is Kawaii50, hoping you all have a phenomenal day, and I'll see y'all in the next video.